In the untamed wilderness of Alaska, where myths come alive and nature dictates its own rules, an extraordinary tale unfolded. It was a story that would leave even the most seasoned forest rangers in disbelief. Three tiny wolf cubs, orphaned by fate's cruel hand, found salvation in the most unexpected guardian. Their protector was neither wolf nor human, but a massive grizzly bear, whose heart proved larger than her fierce appearance. This remarkable bond between natural adversaries would challenge everything known about wilderness relationships, proving that family isn't always bound by blood or species. Deep in the ancient forest, where towering pines meet snow-covered mountains, life began simply enough for the three wolf cubs. Their den, nestled beneath the twisted roots of an old pine tree, was warm and secure. Their mother's silver fur was a constant comfort in their tiny world. They were barely 2 weeks old, their eyes just beginning to open to the vast wilderness around them. Their mother, Luna, was a remarkable wolf, known throughout the territory for her strength and wisdom. She had chosen this particular den for its safety, hidden away from the dangers that lurked in the wild. The smallest of the cubs, with fur as white as freshly fallen snow, was always the first to explore. His siblings, one gray like storm clouds and another with hints of amber in her coat, followed their adventurous brother everywhere. Luna watched over them with unwavering devotion, her golden eyes always alert for any sign of danger. She was their entire world, their protector, their teacher, and their source of warmth in the bitter cold of the Alaskan spring. As the days passed, the cubs grew stronger. Luna would bring them scraps of food, teaching them the scents and tastes that would one day guide them to become skilled hunters. She cleaned their fur with gentle licks, ensuring they stayed warm and healthy. The bond between mother and cubs deepened with each passing day, their small family unit thriving in their secluded corner of the wilderness. But nature holds no promises, and survival in the wild hangs by a delicate thread. No one could have predicted how quickly their world would change. The cubs were still too young to understand the dangers surrounding them, too innocent to know that their peaceful existence could shatter in an instant. Their mother's watchful eyes could only protect them from so much, and the wilderness had its own plans for these tiny souls. The day everything changed began like any other. The morning sun painted the snow in shades of pink and gold, and the cubs tumbled playfully near the entrance of their den. Luna had left to hunt, promising to return with food for her growing family. The cubs waited patiently, as they always did, for their mother's familiar silhouette to appear through the trees. But on this day, the shadows grew longer, and the warm presence that had been their constant comfort did not return. The cold began to seep into their den as night approached. The cubs huddled together, their tiny bodies shivering, not just from the chill, but from a growing fear they had never known before. Their mother's absence left a void that echoed through the forest, and their soft whimpers carried on the wind. Unanswered. They were alone, three tiny hearts beating against the vast wilderness, unaware that their story was about to take an extraordinary turn, one that would challenge the very laws of nature itself. Hours turned into days as the wolf cubs waited in their den. Hunger gnawed at their small bellies, and the warmth of their mother's fur became a distant memory. The white cub, despite being the smallest, took the lead in keeping his siblings warm, huddling close and sharing what little body heat they had. Their innocent play had been replaced by quiet whimpers and desperate attempts to stay alive. On the third day, weak from hunger and driven by desperation, they ventured beyond the safety of their den. Their tiny paws sank into the deep snow as they stumbled through the forest. The gray cub kept falling, exhausted and cold, while the amber one kept looking back toward their den, hoping their mother would return. But they had to move or perish, their survival instincts pushing them forward despite their fear. The forest was alive with sounds they had never heard before, each crack of a branch or rustle of leaves making them freeze in terror. They were too young to hunt, too inexperienced to find food, and too small to defend themselves. In the vast Alaskan wilderness, they were nothing more than a few mouthfuls for any predator that found them. As the sun began to set on their first day of wandering, a new sound echoed through the trees. Heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by deep, powerful breaths that made the cubs tremble. Through the undergrowth emerged a massive grizzly bear, her brown fur touched with silver in the fading light. She was a magnificent creature, known in these parts for her solitary nature and fierce protection of her territory. The cubs froze, their small bodies pressed together in a futile attempt to appear even smaller. They were too weak to run, too tired to hide. The white cub stood slightly in front of his siblings, a tiny guardian facing an impossible threat. But what happened next would become the stuff of legend in these woods. The bear approached slowly, her powerful nose taking in their scent. She was fresh from hibernation, her own maternal instincts awakened by the spring. Something about these helpless cubs, their obvious distress, and their brave attempt to stay together stirred something deep within her. Instead of seeing them as prey, she saw them as what they were, orphaned babies in desperate need of protection. To the cubs' surprise, the bear lowered her massive head and gently nudged the weakest of them, the gray cub who had collapsed in exhaustion. Her warm breath stirred their fur, carrying not the threat of death, but the promise of life. The white cub, still protecting his siblings, felt something shift in the air. The terror that had gripped them began to fade, replaced by a glimmer of hope. The bear's movements were surprisingly gentle for such a large creature. She used her nose to shepherd the cubs together, creating a warm barrier against the cold wind with her body. The cubs, driven by desperation and an instinct they didn't understand, found themselves drawn to her warmth. It was different from their mother's fur, coarser and darker, but it offered protection they so desperately needed. As night fell over the forest, the cubs found themselves in an unexpected situation. Instead of becoming prey to this mighty predator, they had found a protector. The bear settled down in a sheltered spot, and the cubs, too exhausted to question this miracle, huddled against her warm fur. Their tiny bodies relaxed for the first time in days as they fell into a deep, healing sleep. Nature had written a new chapter in the story of survival, one that defied all expectations. The bear, who should have been their greatest threat, had become their unlikely guardian. It was the beginning of a bond that would challenge everything known about natural enemies. A reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of compassion come from the most unexpected sources. The transformation of 3 helpless wolf cubs into strong young wolves under a bear's care unfolded like a miracle in the Alaskan wilderness. Each month brought new changes, new learnings, and stronger bonds between Sierra and her adopted cubs. The process of growing up with a bear reshaped not only their physical abilities, but their very nature as wolves. In their first month together, Sierra's maternal instincts guided her to adapt her care for these smaller, different babies. She learned to be gentle with her massive paws when guiding them, and the cubs learned to recognize her different growls and movements as signs of love rather than threat. She would catch fish and carefully tear them into smaller pieces their tiny wolf jaws could handle. At night, they would sleep pressed against her warm fur, their small bodies fitting perfectly in the curve of her massive form. As spring turned to summer, the cubs grew rapidly under Sierra's watchful care. The white cub, smallest of the 3, became surprisingly adventurous. He would try to imitate Sierra's fishing techniques at the shallow edges of streams, often falling into the water but never giving up. His gray brother developed incredible patience, sitting beside Sierra for hours, learning to wait for the right moment to catch prey. The amber sister became the most attentive, watching Sierra's every move and perfecting each lesson their bear mother taught them. Their 5th month brought a pivotal moment in their unusual family's journey. A lone wolf appeared at the edge of their territory, watching the cubs with obvious interest. The cubs, now able to run and hunt small prey, had a clear chance to return to their own kind. But instead of approaching the wolf, they rushed to Sierra's side, pressing against her fur and staying close until the wolf departed. It was their first conscious choice to stay with their bear mother, a decision that would shape their future forever. By the time autumn arrived, the cubs had grown into strong young wolves, though still not fully mature. Sierra taught them everything she knew about survival, but in ways that worked for their wolf nature. They learned to fish using their speed and agility rather than bear strength. They developed their own unique hunting style, combining Sierra's powerful presence to drive prey with their wolf speed to make the catch. When Sierra dug for roots and grubs, they learned to use their sensitive noses to find the richest spots, making their different abilities work together perfectly. The bond between them grew strongest during their hunting lessons. Sierra would demonstrate how to catch salmon, her massive paws splashing in the river as she showed them the right spots to wait. The cubs learned to position themselves downstream, their wolf instincts blending with bear hunting techniques. Soon they developed their own method, with Sierra herding the fish toward their waiting jaws. Each successful catch was celebrated together, the cubs prancing around their mother's feet while she watched with visible pride. Winter brought new challenges that only strengthened their connection. When heavy snows made hunting difficult, Sierra taught them to dig for hidden food beneath the frozen ground. The cubs learned to follow her lead in finding shelter during storms, and their shared body heat kept them warm through the coldest nights. They developed a way of communicating that was neither bear nor wolf, but something uniquely their own, a language of family born from love and necessity. Their days fell into a rhythm that showed how inseparable they had become. They would wake together as the sun rose, the cubs nuzzling Sierra awake with gentle touches. During their daily patrols, they moved as one unit, the cubs taking turns scouting ahead, while always staying within sight of their mother. When they rested, they would groom Sierra's thick fur, picking out burrs and thorns, showing their affection through these tender gestures. Through each stage of their growth, the bond between Sierra and her wolf children grew deeper. They were no longer just survivors of a tragedy, but a true family, choosing each other every day. Their different natures became their strength, not their weakness. The cubs grew up learning both wolf and bear ways, creating something entirely new in the process. Their story was no longer just about survival, but about the incredible capacity of love to bridge the divide between species and create something extraordinary. As their first year together drew to a close, the young wolves had grown into strong, capable hunters. Yet unlike normal wolves their age, they showed no interest in leaving their mother's side. They had created their own pack, their own family, with Sierra at its heart. Their days were filled with shared hunts, quiet moments of affection, and the deep contentment of being exactly where they belonged. In the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, they had rewritten nature's rules, proving that the strongest families are those bound by love rather than blood. As winter approached and the cubs grew into young wolves, their bond with Sierra faced its greatest tests. A wolf pack moved into their territory, their howls echoing through the frost-covered trees. The pack was strong, healthy, and would have been a natural family for the three young wolves. Ghost, Storm, and Autumn heard their calls, their wild wolf blood stirring at the sound of their own kind. But rather than running to join them, they pressed closer to Sierra, choosing their bear mother over their biological heritage. The pack's presence revealed just how unique their family had become. When the wolf pack ventured too close to their territory, Sierra stood guard while the three young wolves flanked her, creating an unusual but formidable defensive unit. The sight of three nearly grown wolves standing alongside a massive grizzly bear was enough to make even the most curious wolf pack keep their distance. Their reputation spread through the wilderness, becoming a legend among the forest creatures. Their daily life showed just how inseparable they had become. When Sierra fished in the icy rivers, the wolves would position themselves downstream, catching any fish that escaped their mother's powerful paws. During their hunts, they moved as one unit, their different hunting styles complementing each other perfectly. Sierra would drive larger prey toward the wolves, who had developed exceptional speed and coordination. Their success rate was remarkable, their unique combination of bear strength and wolf agility, making them an unstoppable team. The young wolves had grown into beautiful creatures, their coats thick and healthy, their bodies strong and agile. Ghost's white fur had become even more striking, making him stand out against Sierra's dark coat. Storm had grown almost as large as his siblings, his gray fur often blending with the shadows as he moved through the forest. Autumn's amber coat shone in the sunlight, her movements graceful and sure. Yet despite their maturity, they showed no interest in finding mates or starting their own pack. Their family was complete as it was. During the harshest days of winter, their bond grew even stronger. They would sleep huddled together in their cave, the wolf's fur mixing with Sierra's thick coat as they shared warmth. When food became scarce, they worked together to find sustenance, sharing every meal as a family. Sierra would dig through the snow to find buried plants and hibernating animals, while the wolves used their keen sense of smell to locate hidden prey. Their survival depended on each other, and they thrived because of their unity. Spring brought new challenges as other bears emerged from hibernation. Male bears, drawn by Sierra's presence, would sometimes venture into their territory, but they were met with an unexpected sight: a female grizzly bear fiercely protected by 3 loyal wolves. The young wolves would warn of approaching bears long before they got too close, their howls alerting Sierra to potential threats. No other bear dared to challenge this unusual but powerful family unit. Their story caught the attention of wildlife researchers who observed them from a distance. They documented how the wolves would groom Sierra's fur, picking out burrs and thorns just as they would do for each other. They watched as Sierra would wait patiently while the wolves investigated new areas, trusting their superior sense of smell to detect danger. The researchers were amazed by how the family communicated through a complex mixture of bear and wolf body language that they had developed over their years together. The most remarkable aspect of their relationship was its permanence. Even when the wolves reached full maturity, they remained devoted to Sierra and each other. They could have chosen to follow their wild instincts, to seek mates and establish their own territories. Instead, they chose to stay, their loyalty to their bear mother and each other stronger than any natural urge. Their bond had transcended the expected boundaries of nature, creating a family that defied explanation, but proved that love knows no species. Their days fell into a comfortable routine that showcased their inseparable nature. They would patrol their territory together, hunt as a unit, and rest as a family. The sight of 3 wolves and a bear moving through the forest as one became a regular occurrence in their part of Alaska. They had created their own world, their own rules, and their own definition of family. Their story became a testament to the power of love and adaptation, proving that the strongest bonds are not always those prescribed by nature, but those chosen by the heart. Years passed in the Alaskan wilderness, and the legend of the bear and her wolf family only grew stronger. Their territory became known as a place where the impossible had become possible, where the laws of nature had been rewritten by love. Ghost, Storm, and Autumn had grown into magnificent adult wolves, their size and strength a testament to Sierra's careful nurturing. Yet they remained as devoted to their bear mother as they had been since those first desperate days as orphan cubs. Their story spread beyond the forest, attracting wildlife photographers and researchers who would spend weeks trying to document their extraordinary relationship. They witnessed scenes that defied everything known about wild animal behavior. The wolves, now powerful hunters in their own right, would still bring choice pieces of their kills to share with Sierra. During salmon runs, they would work together at the river, their teamwork so seamless it seemed they had been born to it. Sierra would catch the larger fish, while the wolves darted after the smaller ones, their movements perfectly coordinated after years of practice. The changing seasons had no effect on their devotion to each other. When winter storms raged, they would stay close in their cave, the wolves' fur mixing with Sierra's thick coat as they shared warmth and comfort. During the abundance of summer, they would explore their territory together, the wolves always keeping pace with their slower but mighty mother. Their communication had evolved into something remarkable, a complex language of gestures, sounds, and movements that only they understood. Their bond faced its ultimate test when Sierra began to show signs of age. Her movements became slower, her fishing less efficient. Instead of leaving her to find easier hunting grounds, the wolves adapted. They began bringing more food to her, working harder to ensure she was well fed. Ghost would lead hunting parties while Storm kept watch, and Autumn would stay close to Sierra, as if knowing her presence brought comfort to their aging mother. Their roles had shifted, but their devotion never wavered. The forest itself seemed to recognize and respect their unique family. Other predators gave them a wide berth, not out of fear alone, but out of a sort of reverence for what they represented. Young bears passing through their territory would often stop and watch in amazement as the 3 wolves walked confidently alongside their massive adopted mother. Wolf packs in the area had learned to avoid challenging this unusual but formidable family unit. Their story became a whispered legend among the local indigenous people, who saw in them a powerful message about the true meaning of family. They spoke of how the Great Spirit had brought these unlikely creatures together, creating a bond that transcended the natural order. The elders would tell children about the white wolf, the gray wolf, and the amber wolf who chose love over instinct, who remained faithful to the great bear who had saved them. As Sierra grew older, the wolves' dedication to her only intensified. They would guard her rest periods, protect her during hunts, and show their affection through gentle nudges and constant companionship. Their behavior demonstrated that the combination of wolf loyalty and bear strength had created something entirely new in the wilderness. Their family bond had grown beyond mere survival into something profound and unshakable. Each passing season wrote new chapters in their extraordinary tale. The sight of 3 adult wolves and their bear mother moving through the forest together became a symbol of hope and possibility. They had not only survived against impossible odds, but had thrived, creating a family that defied explanation. Their story proved that sometimes the strongest bonds are those we choose, that love can bridge the widest of natural divides, and that family is defined not by blood, but by the heart. In the end, what started as a desperate encounter between orphan cubs and a solitary bear had become one of the most remarkable wildlife stories ever documented. The tiny wolf cubs who lost their mother had not just survived, they had found a new kind of family, one that would redefine what was possible in the natural world. Their inseparable bond stood as a testament to the power of love, proving that in the heart of the wilderness, extraordinary things can happen when fear is replaced by compassion and when nature's boundaries are crossed by the bridges of unconditional love. This extraordinary tale of unconditional love between a bear and 3 wolf cubs shows us that family bonds can transcend all natural boundaries. If you were moved by this remarkable story from the Alaskan wilderness, we invite you to join our growing community of wildlife enthusiasts by subscribing to our channel. Click the subscribe button and notification bell to receive more heartwarming stories of unexpected animal friendships, survival against all odds, and the incredible wonders of nature. Share this story with your friends and family to spread the message that love knows no limits, even in the wild. Your support helps us continue bringing these amazing true stories to life. So join us on this journey of discovery and be part of our wildlife-loving family. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and become part of this extraordinary adventure into the heart of the wild.